Okay, perfect. Then I think I can start. There are still some people dialing in, but I think we can start already with the agenda. Welcome to our release update for Lockup 6.1. Yes, today we also brought a couple of new features that we actually want to present to you. So we just had with the Lockup 6.0 a really big release, where we also have now a couple of enhancements, but we also have actually two new application and two new modes that are hopefully really helpful for your daily work and hopefully save you a lot of time. Let's take directly a look into the agenda. Today, I actually want to talk about the CO2 emission app. There we actually implemented a multi-leg mode. This hopefully saves you some time because now you can do in one calculation directly the calculation of all the multiple legs. So for example, if you want to transport something from Germany via container ship to the US, you just enter the start from the shipment and the final destination of the shipment, and our system will select then the closest port and will do the main leg with the container ship or with the vessel, and the pre and the post carriage will be calculated based on a truck. Yes, and then you have directly the CO2 calculation for all the separate legs in one go. Additionally, we also made an enhancement in the Freight Matrix Plus application. This is also mentioned in the title of the webinar regarding the smart tenders. So we have now the possibility that you can compare multiple freight tariffs that you actually model in such a freight matrix in one calculation. You can select all the freight matrices that you want to compare, and we will actually compare them and select the freight matrices is the best for your shipment. Then, like mentioned already before, in 6.0, we had quite many new updates. One of them were actually our supply chain agent. The supply chain agent supported at that time a couple of tools. Now we enhanced it that also the last mile and the nearest warehouse are actually supported. And additionally, we also upgraded the language. So the large language model behind is running now on the ChatGPT 5.1 model. And then last but not least, we also made some improvements in the shipment flow optimization and the supply chain designer. I will show you the improvements that we did based on your feedback. Both of these two premium applications were also released in 6.0, and we also enabled the scenario comparison that was not yet available. So that's actually it, what I want to talk about. Like I always mention it, if you have any questions, feel free to use actually this comments or this Q&A section, and my colleagues will directly try to answer them. If there are any relevant questions, we will directly also pick it up in the bigger group. Okay, perfect. Then we can directly jump into the tool. I will directly go to the Excel, and let's take a look what we actually did. Let's start with the CO2 calculation mode. Therefore, we need to use actually the CO2 Emissions App. So this application exists already for a long time. So what is new that we have here now a new mode called the multi-leg. So when we go to the multi-leg, let's quickly just generate some sample data in the addresses mode. For this one, like always, also exists in latitude longitude mode. As you can see, we have now 3 input tables, and I quickly want to explain you for what you actually need the input tables. The first table is actually the most relevant one. This is the shipments of this multi-leg. So here you actually define, I want to, for example, ship something from Berlin to Hamburg. And you define, like always, the weight. Is it refrigerated or not? What is actually new is actually these 3 columns here. Here you define actually the emission group that you want to use actually for the transport. The first one is not that interesting. It's just a regular road transport. This would be the same like we would select here the road. The second one is, for example, here the main leg would be a river transport. And this means the main topic would be inland waterways used. Here we have, for example, a container sea shipment. And this is actually new. And additionally, we can define, there we come later to in detail, valid location and invalid location. Let me just quickly explain what you can do here. If you, for example, send a shipment through your network, then most of the times your carrier are only using certain seaports, for example. And in this valid location, you can define then all the seaports that are actually supported by your service providers. And then our application will, for example, only use the seaports that you are actually also use for your shipments. The same topic you can do in the invalid location if you just want to validate it the other way around and you want to avoid certain location, then you can also define it here in the invalid locations. To come to the other two tables, this is actually a reference to this one. If I, for example, define certain seaports, this one here, then you need to define this here actually in the second table, in our transport groups table. And here I define all the seaports that I actually want to support. And then I just use this reference from the transport group in here in the valid location. So here in this table, but we will see it later in detail, we are defining all the ports that should be supported. And then additionally, the last table is here you can set up all the configurations that you actually want to use. For example, if we take a look here at the road transport and we generate here a template, then I would also have my shipments and I have here all the configurations. I want to use a truck, want to use this and this fuel type, weight units, emission standard, and so on. And this configuration, what you can do here on the single leg, you should have also the possibility to do this in the multiple leg. And this is actually done exactly here in the separate table. So for example, here we define the road standard and we are using here a truck of the type diesel and Euro 6. And then again, this group name is actually the reference for this emission group. So here you define which kind of emission group or which configuration you want to actually use in which of these legs. So that's actually what you need as an input for the multi-leg application. Let's directly try to do some calculations, and therefore let's maybe just that it's easier visible in the supply chain map how this functions. Let's just maybe select the first two. Let's just run it with the sample data, and later on we will also go in detail with a specific shipment. So I run the calculation through. Like always, we have in the output data our output tables. I can also directly export them. In the output table, we have we have two tables, one emission overview and one emission detail. In the emission overview, we have one line per shipment, and there we actually directly see then the total CO2 emission aggregated. So the first shipment is actually a road shipment. There we only have one leg. The second shipment is actually from Den Haag to Bern in Switzerland, and here we should actually use the river transport, so we will have multiple legs. The multiple legs you can actually see here in the CO2 emissions details table. As you can see, first shipment only has one leg, and the second shipment has actually 3 legs. And when you go towards the end, you can actually see here in the transport mode, the pre-carriage is done on the road, then the main carriage is done on the river, and then the last couple of kilometers again done on the road. So, and to as well as you can see here, then for each of the steps, the CO2, the total emission of the CO2, and then tank to wheel and well to tank. And obviously in front, you can also see it directly aggregated, right? So here you can see the total emission of the shipment itself. If we open, for example, then the shipments in a map view, you can actually also see that we have then actually one here on the left side, we have one for each shipment, we have one group. So the first shipment, like mentioned, is only a truck shipment. It has only one leg in there, so from Berlin to Hamburg. But here, if we take, for example, a look at this shipment, you can see actually the 3 legs. So here from Den Haag, we go somewhere to Rotterdam, to the next terminal, where we can load it towards the Rhine, and then we are going down the whole Rhine towards Basel and reload it there to a truck and go actually then to Bern. So this is actually how it's actually visualized. So there we actually implemented these groups where we can combine directly multiple layers in the map to one group, and one group is actually one shipment. But let's maybe go quickly back and take a look what happens if I want to do a container shipment from Germany to the US. Therefore, I prepared here some data. I just prepared one shipment. It's 20 tons. And we should go from Wolfsburg in Germany to a city in the US. And we should use our C standard and our seaports core locations. Therefore, I just need to connect this table. And then what I actually want to show you here, I have now a smaller set because I'm only using our seaports core in this calculation, so I don't need our river ports and so on. Then I connect all the ports, all the seaports that are actually should be used in my locations. And there we will also change this later. And here I can connect the whole table. But in general, we would actually only have to connect one line because we are actually using here the C standard with a container ship on the main leg. Let's do quickly such a calculation. Let's take a look what is actually happening on the map. And there I also want to see you what I mean with you can use certain ports that you want to use and exclude other ones. So when we open this now on the map, let's take a look. We start here in Germany from Wolfsburg, going up with a truck to Hamburg. Then we use the container ship and going to Philadelphia. And the last couple of kilometers or miles, we are going again with a truck. So if I, for example, this would be the current configuration. If, for example, I know, hey, my carrier, they are not using Hamburg, they are using different ports, then you can easily configure this. And this is actually what I quickly want to show you. For example, here in this table, I just removed now the Hamburg port. The Hamburg port is actually this one, DEM. Then we can just connect the smaller set. And let's do the calculation again. Then let's quickly open it on the map. So now Hamburg is not a valid option anymore. So now he's actually using the next available port. So the next available seaport is actually Rotterdam. Even there would be an additional one in Bremerhaven, but Bremerhaven is also not in my list. So he's always routing it to the next available seaport. Then for sure we have a longer transport on the road. Because but we can obviously only use actually terminals that are actually supported by your carriers, because only when you do it in this way, then you have actually a precise calculation of the CO2 footprint. And when we go back, then you can, like showed already before, you could export a result. You have then this one shipment, and here you see actually in the leg how much CO2 was actually then done by all the single legs. So overall, this application was also built based on the feedback that you have it easier to do the calculation of these multiple legs and hopefully save you a lot of time. Because just for explanation for everyone who did not use the CO2 calculation before you always had to calculate each leg separately. You had to do first the road transport, then the sea transport, then again the road transport, and now this is actually done in one application. Like mentioned before, it's available in both ways, in the address mode and in latitude longitude way. Okay, perfect. So are there any questions in the group that we should maybe answer, or can we jump to the next topic?
No questions at the moment.
Okay, perfect. Then we can continue, and then we go actually to our Freight Matrix Plus application. So it's also not a new application, but it's quite an extensive enhancement where you can easily compare multiple matrices in one calculation. Therefore, I quickly need to explain you how you can actually use this Freight Matrix Plus. So the first thing, when you want to use actually multiple freight matrices, you need to have actually a matrix on your platform. So here, like always, we have, for example, here I prepared workspace, the lockup 6.1. So currently I have there some preparations later on for the scenario comparison, and here I have a project. And when you want to have normally a matrix where you want to use in the scenario in this Matrix Plus application, you can go here to create, and you can create your freight matrix. So here I just use now an absolute weight distance matrix, and then I can say, for example, demo. I would create this one. So here then I have such a freight matrix. This is now absolute weight distance matrix, where you have here the distance, then here you have the weight, and here you have then actually the price for each shipment according to the certain size. Often you have multiple of these matrices because you have, for example, multiple providers, or you are actually generating multiple matrices for a tender or for offer, and then you want to compare actually how are these matrices behaving in a certain scenario with a certain amount of shipment. And therefore you can actually use our Freight Matrix Plus application to reuse this matrix what I just showed you on the platform. Therefore, let's open quickly the Freight Matrix Plus, and let's quickly just generate a template. So here you normally have all your shipments, and this shipments is what you want to evaluate. And therefore you apply then a certain matrix. Then you go here to your workspace, and then you can actually go to this lookup 6.1. And now after it's loaded, we can load here, for example, our demo matrix. So this is how it worked the whole time. And now we can start in the calculation, and we are applying now this matrix to our shipments. So this is actually how the applications work the whole time for everyone who did not work with this application before. So we are applying it. So let's see how many shipments we have in here. Around 492. And now all of the shipments are actually this cost tariff, or this matrix is actually applied to the shipments. So what is actually now new is the following. Therefore, I just prepared some input template. Let's quickly go there. Here I have a couple of shipments. Let me just remove, sorry, I just checked this. Let me remove the output first. And we connect now this shipments. Sorry, I need to use the latitude longitude mode because these shipments that I used here, I just used the latitude longitude mode. The only difference is that we have here from latitude and to latitude and not the address itself. As a preparation that I have some useful matrices, we prepared some in the following workspace. I just want to quickly show you the workspace, how it looks like. In this workspace, demo freight matrix, I have actually 3 different rate cards. One rate card for the FTL, one for parcel, and one zoning rate card. So they can also be from a different type. This FTL rate card is pretty much similar to what I showed you. It's an absolute weight distance matrix where we have here the distance, here the weight, then we have here the cost. But we can, for example, have also different matrix types. For example, this zoning matrix. This works differently. Here you pay depending to which zone you transport in. So for example, if you go to zone C6 and then you transport a certain weight, then you have to pay this amount here. And now with this new application, we can actually compare these 3 rate cards that we have in this workspace in one calculation. Therefore, we go back. Our data is here connected. Now I don't want to go to this 6.1 because we want to use the workspace demo freight matrix comparison that I actually just showed you. And now when I click here, I have all these rate cards actually available. And now we have here actually multiple select that you can select all the rate cards that you want to use. And when we do now the calculation, it will take maybe a bit longer. Those 3 rate cards is not that complex. We also don't have here that many shipments. And now we can export it. When we go now towards the back, we see that here we have actually the cost for each rate card evaluated. So this one is new for the FTL, parcel, and zoning. And this is actually growing then dynamically. If you would select 2 rate cards, we would only see 2, 4, and so on. The table would get wider. And here we select then for you the best cost, right? Depending on the rate card. So this column is actually just the minimum of this rates here. And yeah, here we also highlight, so most of the time here the zoning rate card is the best for our solution. And here, for example, we also select once the FTL and the parcel rate. So this is evaluated in one go. And now you have directly for each shipment the best option chosen for depending on the rate cards that you selected. There is one additional topic what we introduced that is actually also new compared to the other factors that we have in. As you can see here, we have such a group column. Let me quickly explain what this group does, and we will also directly see then the difference. So here I have 4 shipments that I assign to a certain group. What is often the case in an operational system or in an operational use case, if you are choosing one provider, then it's often required that all of these shipments go with one provider, because your customer will maybe not accept that you get different shipments by a different provider. And therefore, you can actually group certain amount of shipments. What does this mean for our engine? These shipments here that are assigned to this group A, they have to be transported with the same rate card. So if we go now to the result here, we can actually see all with this group 1, they are all transported with the zoning rate card. If we take a look at the comparison here, you can directly see in this example, hey, but here is the zoning card is not the best or the least expensive option, because here we take a look at the total costs of this 4 shipments and what is the best option for the 4 of them. That's why we force the algorithm to ship some shipment with a certain rate card. If we do now the same calculation and we just remove this, then we hopefully should see that some of the shipments, because now it doesn't matter with which one. So I think it was this shipment 5. Let's take a look at the shipment 5. The shipment 5 is now shipped with the FTL rate card and not anymore with the zoning rate card, because the FTL rate card is the least expensive one, and the same here for this one. And before, up here, we still shipped it with the zoning card because we enforced it with this group parameter. So yeah, this is definitely highly relevant for operational use, because most of the time you don't want to have then a couple of shipments sent with one carrier and the other shipments with another one. And therefore is actually this group column available. So this is actually the new enhancement of our Freight Matrix Plus, where you can actually select multiple rate cards to compare them with each other. Okay, perfect. So this is actually what I wanted to show you regarding this topic. Maybe a quick question. Are there any questions that we should take up, or is everything fine? Otherwise, I would continue with the supply chain agent. So
No, we had one, but it was answered.
Okay, okay, good. Okay, great. Then we can actually go to the supply chain agent. The supply chain agent we introduced actually in lockup 6.0. I quickly want to show it to you again. So here, let's quickly go first to our platform, and then let's go to our workspace 6.1. So if you joined already the last webinar, or maybe you already tested our premium capacity, since 6.0, we have the option to also create actually the supply chain agent. The supply chain agent can actually work with your data and interact with our tools based on a large language model. So let's take a look we create here a new supply chain agent. Under create, you can create here the supply chain agent. And here we, like last time show, we have all the available tools, and this one is now enhanced with the last mile and also with the nearest warehouse. So what we can do, for example, that we couldn't do until this release, is now we start enhancing actually the agent that he can also do some route optimization and some tour planning. So the last mile is one of the simpler tour planning algorithm, and I asked him now, can you plan me a tour for a truck through the 10 biggest cities in Germany? So like I mentioned already before, the agent is able to generate data on his own, but he can also reuse data from your projects that are, for example, saved in a data set. Here I just asked him something, and the 10 biggest cities, so he knows from the large language model what are the 10 biggest cities in Germany, and he directly generates this, and here he lists you also the topic, and now you have here the map view link. And if you click here, we go actually in the split screen, and now you can see we have now a tour through the 10 biggest cities in Germany planned, starting here in Berlin. So most likely he started in Berlin because Berlin is the biggest city in Germany. But for example, if I want to start somewhere else, then you can also tell him start in Munich, for example. Let's see if this works. What he is also recommending here, that he can split you some topics. He makes you directly some recommendation what else you could do with this data, and gives you the key results back from the optimization. What was the total distance? How much time you would actually need? Obviously too much time for a truck to go this in one day, and so on. So now I just told him start in Munich. Now he will do an additional calculation. And for sure, this is, you can not only do this with the generated data, you could also just use the data from a data set, what I will show you in a second for the other application. Now actually optimized route is he starts now in Munich, goes then through the south towards Stuttgart, Frankfurt, and so on. Obviously, we can also take a look at the map view. So now I told him, please start in Munich, and now he is going here to Stuttgart, Frankfurt, and so on, and routing it the other way around. So now you have also the possibility to do some smaller route optimization with the agents. And additionally, this is one topic. And now I also want to show you how you can actually interact with him, that he can actually use also existing data set. So this I showed also in the other release topic. So here I have a data set project already prepared. And in here I have my customers, and I also have some warehouses or my locations in this data set. And I can tell the agent that he should actually work with this data in here. And therefore, let me quickly just copy the prepared sentence. Let's see what would be the best assignment of the customers to the nearest warehouses. So it's actually the nearest warehouses app that we also support. Let's create here this agent. And let's see what he does. Can you use the dataset project and assign the customers to the nearest warehouses? So first of all, he needs to actually analyze the project dataset, that he understands which kind of data do I have in there and what would be the best column mapping. So before he starts the calculation, he should also ask us how he would recommend to map actually the columns. So he is just reading here the data set. This is this tool where you can always check what he actually does or what does he fetch. Then he needs a couple of seconds to think. So now he saw, hey, I have a customer tables with 350 rows. I have 13 warehouses. And here he's also directly proposing the mapping. So in the customers, I just have a name, a latitude, longitude. And in the warehouse, I have a warehouse latitude and warehouse longitude. And then here he proposes us the column mapping, how he's actually mapping the certain tables to the certain columns. What is also in this construct correct. Maybe compared to the last time, you see that here some formatting is different. So now we are actually using a smarter model, the GPT 5.1. So he is, you can see it, for example, the formatting is a bit nicer styled, for example. we increased the model complexity, the model version. And yes, you know from other AI application, as smarter is the model, then as smarter are also the suggestions that he can actually do. So there we also did in the background an update for you. And then here he recommends, okay, I would do this calculation plan with the one nearest warehouse, or how we want to configure it. And then I could, for example, tell him use maybe just do one nearest warehouse and use a radius of 400 kilometers. So this can also take then some time, this calculation. Now he tries to map this. Just as a background information that we are actually connecting, we are using here the nearest warehouse application. This would be actually the input contract. You have your warehouses, customers, and all this question that he asked, the radius and so on, he can actually configure. So here I would set the settings to 1, and the radius I set, I think, to 400. So this is actually the calculation that he should do if it works correctly. Now you can see he is executing the reverse nearest warehouse, and now he is actually using here this color mapping approach. So you can also do this with a lot of data in here, because he's actually reusing just the tables that are saved already on the platform, and is configuring the system accordingly. So this will take a couple of minutes, or not minutes, maybe a couple of seconds. Let's quickly wait until he is done. What can also sometimes happen if you use the agent, sometimes you maybe need to be more precise. It can also happen that he does not fully understand you, and he does not know exactly which tool he actually wants to use. So whenever this green mark is coming, then at least the calculation is done, and he can interpret actually the result that came back. He gives you then here a small summary of the KPIs, and now we can go to the map view and take a look if he assigned it correctly. So now he did here this assignment from the yellow ones are actually our warehouses, and the blue dots are actually our customers, and he did actually the assignment for you. Again, all the tools that are available for the agent, you can just click here to the link, available tools. And here you are in our central documentation, and here documentation for supply chain agent. If you scroll a little bit down, then you see all the tools that we currently support. So we added the last mile and the nearest warehouse in this release. And for sure, there are a couple of additional tools will come actually in the next releases. Okay, perfect. This is actually what I wanted to show you regarding our supply chain agent. Manuel, so you stop me if there are actually any questions that we should talk about. Otherwise, we can actually focus on the 2 other new premium applications that we also released in 6.1. In 6.0. So this was actually the shipment flow optimizer and the supply chain designer. We also had 2 additional webinars where we explained actually the shipment flow optimizer and supply chain designer. You can also find the webinars always on our YouTube channel. If you want to take a look, there we explained in detail the functionality of these 2 applications, and we have many customers already testing the application and using them. And we also got a couple of feedbacks regarding what would be nice to have. So we did some small adjustments already, and we enabled also for you the scenario comparison. Let's quickly explain what are the features that are actually new. Let's quickly start with the shipment flow optimizer. By the way, you can see this application here on this premium tag. If we generate now the sample data again of the shipment flow optimizer, what we enhanced here is one feature that we also support in many of the other route optimization applications, and this is actually this external costs. So if you, for example, have a certain shipment and you assign external costs, and the external costs are less expensive than the costs that it would cost you to produce the shipment through your own network structure, then actually the external costs are actually used, and the shipments are actually not produced with your own network. So this is one topic that we enhanced actually here. Additionally, when we quickly go to the supply chain designer, in the supply chain designer, we have now also here the possibility to define the minimum and the maximum amount of warehouses that the optimizer should use. And this configuration actually, this can help you to to influence. So it's actually the same parameter that we have in our network design applications, and many customers were kind of missing this feature. So because here you give an additional restriction to the optimizer, for example, that you are only allowed to open, for example, 2 warehouses, even if the optimal solution would be to open more warehouses. Now you can also influence these topics here with this additional configuration method. What is also new, and this is actually what I wanted to show you, is actually the scenario comparison. Before, maybe you were missing the save scenario button that you directly save it actually on the platform. So you can, for example, turn this on. I prepared this also already, but we can just do quickly one calculation. Let's give him that 5 warehouses. Now we could go here to our 6.1, and yeah, we just say supply chain designer demo. Now we would run one calculation. As you know from all the other applications, we save now this calculation directly on our workspace. So for sure, you could open here the map, or you could go directly to the platform. Second, all maps. So here, when we go to the platform and go back to our 6.1, then I should see here actually one additional calculation. I have here already many calculations done. Just by the way, the supply chain agent, what I showed you, he is also saving all the calculation, what you saw. Also, all the maps are always saved directly in this platform, right, on the workspace. And we just did this calculation, this supply chain designer demo. And in here, we actually have then all the maps, input and output data, and so on saved. That we don't have to do this a couple of times, and I just wanted to show you the scenario comparison. I used the time up front to prepare this already. In here, I made before 3 calculations of the from the other tool. I used the shipment flow optimizer, made here the same, and saved actually 3 calculations, and I saved it with a different MIP gap. This means the MIP gap is what is the optimal theoretical solution when we can stop? And if we reach, for example, 95% of the optimal theoretical solution, then we could stop with the 5%. If I set it to 1, then I have to reach 99%. And the 3 calculations, what I actually did, are exactly changes in this MIP gap. And now that's why I have here now this 3 runtimes of the shipment flow optimizer with the different MIP gap. I don't want to delete them. What I actually want to do is create a scenario comparison. You can also do this here on top on the create button. You can select then here, create scenario comparison, because I have many different scenarios already in here. We most likely need to select the right one. Here you can just select and here, shipment flow optimizer. Then he directly detects the scenarios that I prepared. Shipment flow optimizer. Comp. And then when I say confirm, now he's actually starting fetching all the results from all the dashboards, all the KPIs and so on. And he is starting to do this calculation. This will take some time, around 1 minute or something like this. That's why I actually also prepared this already. So we can let it run in the background, but I don't want to waste any time. We can also just go again, sorry, to the platform, do nothing. And go to the project workspace. 1. So here I created already one before, but it looks like this one is also created. Sorry, it was not faster. Ah, no, he is still generating on it. It's not completely done. But I can also open you this dashboard. So the scenario comparison dashboard. Here we have now the scenario comparison. We compare actually 3 different scenarios. Here we take a quick look at the main KPIs. And what you can see, what is actually quite interesting, is here the total cost where we are optimizing it. The best scenario with the lowest total cost is also highlighted here in bold. And as you can see, because I gave him here less optimization space, here he also reached actually better optimization run than in the 2 other ones, right? With the MIP gap of 5, he stopped already earlier and he found actually different solution. This is actually what we are comparing because I did not change anything in the input, neither in the configuration. I really just changed the MIP gap. So now here we gave him a bit more time. So you can see that here the total costs are a bit lower. So this is this comparison. We also compare actually the transport types per scenarios or the number of transports here. Then we transport here the costs. So there are not that many differences in this example. Here we actually have this this chart where we define actually the transports. You can deselect and select them. So here one type, and then you can just enable the other ones actually on top. And you can also see that there are actually different kind of transports actually chosen. Then we have here the shipment analysis, the shipment fulfillment, overview of the scenarios 1, 2, and 5. And what is actually quite interesting is here, take a look in the warehouse comparison. You can see that in this scenario, we are actually storing more in the warehouse in period 5 and then a little bit in period 6. So most likely we reach a better consolidation optimization through some storing temporarily in a warehouse. So here we compare the storage costs, and here we actually compare them on each scenario the handling costs. So for sure, and this should be can actually help you if you really run completely different configurations, then you can easily compare this in the scenario comparison dashboard. And this is available for the shipment flow optimizer and also for the supply chain designer. Exactly. So perfect. So this is actually what I wanted to show you today. Are there maybe any questions that we should take up additionally? Otherwise, we made it today on time because we also had so many updates in 6.0. So Mana, are there any questions or is everything clear?
No questions.
Okay, perfect. So if you have any questions, feel free later on, feel free to send us or contact us via our chatbot or just write us on support. If you are actually interested in testing the premium capacity, there will also come soon a pop-up available for you when you have a pro version that you can actually just test the premium capacity free of charge for 2 weeks. For everyone who did not test yet the premium application can actually just press then this button and can actually apply for this testing period of 2 weeks. So have fun with testing, and if you have any questions, let us know. And thank you for your time, and talk to you next time. Bye.